Hello, this is Catherine at I Know I Need to Stop Talking. Here we are again, lockdown part deux. It's shit, isn't it? It's really shit, and I appreciate that if you live somewhere other than England, you've probably already been through your second lockdowns, whether in Wales. I was going to say you had a jawbreaker in Wales. No, you didn't have a jawbreaker, you had a circuit breaker. I don't know where the jawbreaker thing came from. Maybe you also had a jawbreaker. Those are those really big sweets, aren't they? Sweets that even as a child I remember feeling quite intimidated by in the sweet shops. How have I gone from lockdown to sweets? That probably suggests where my mind is at this week. It has been a long week. It has been a very long week. But yeah, we are into a second lockdown in England. So I think there are a lot of us going, really, back here again? Really? And I know we're very lucky, right? So lockdowns certainly in the UK have been nowhere near as drastic as some in other parts of the world. So we're very lucky from that perspective. And I say this as somebody who's sitting in I'm lucky enough to live in a nice house with a garden, have my family around me. So I fully appreciate how fortunate I am. But that aside, lockdowns are a bit fucking shit, aren't they? It's another reminder of the fact we have a long way to go in this year of utter shitness. Seriously, I'm so disappointed that no advent calendar companies have produced some extra long. I would gladly have bought an advent calendar that started in like September to count down the end to this infernal year quickly. Whenever I post that online, somebody then says to me, "And you're thinking that 2021 is going to be any better?" I mean, come on now. Let me have some hope. Let me have some hope and my little foil wrapped chocolate squares behind every day. Advent calendars gone nuts, haven't they? Since when I was a child, I can vividly remember we had an advent calendar and it was terribly exciting. It was an advent calendar with little doors, and behind each door, I think it was like a town scene or something, and behind the doors obviously you would have the little pictures behind each door. And I vividly remember the absolute height of excitement for Christmas Eve was not, it wasn't a Mars bar behind the door, or a bottle of gin, well, hopefully not at 6 years old, or even, you got all these jewellery ones. I mean, there's probably like some people like with diamond necklaces in their final day. I think there's some crazy advent calendars. But no, the height of excitement on Christmas Eve, I still now think about it and it makes me feel like, oh, those were the days, was on Christmas Eve, instead of a single door, you got a double door. Oh yeah, you know it. And also, did anybody else have parents who, and fair play to my mum and dad, because I know we didn't have a lot of money as a family back then, they used to recycle our advent calendars. So at the end, because we had some particularly good ones, at the end of each Christmas, they would shut the little doors again and we would use them the following year. Now there is thrifty. I'm trying to imagine my kids' faces if I suggested that now. Yeah, it's not gonna go down well. How do we get onto advent calendars? I'm sure other people's podcasts are a lot more structured than this. Mine is definitely not. But yes, sequels. Lock down the sequels. Sequels are shit, aren't they? It's like the film analogy. Are there any sequels which are better than the first film? I'm saying this as somebody who doesn't really watch films. I have watched a few films in my life. I suffer a little bit from face blindness, which means that genuinely every person, and it is slightly gender biased face blindness, because I'm better with women's faces, I think, because I can recognise women by their hairstyles, so that's really helpful. But men, it's a blur. It's genuinely a blur. Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking, the man I love more than anything, we've been together for a long time, and not so long ago, I was driving back with the children from school, and we were near the train station. And I saw a man walking along the road, and it was Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking. And I said to the kids, "Oh, look, it's Daddy." And I slowed down the car, ready to open the door to give him a lift. And thankfully, both my children went, "That's not Daddy." And it wasn't Daddy. So that's nice and reassuring for everybody, I'm sure. But yeah, face blindness is a bit of a thing for me. So no, I'm not very good with films. My favourite film by a country mile is Jaws. Mainly because the shark, I don't get face blindness with sharks, it turns out. I'm really good at recognising sharks. That's like my specialist skill. But yeah, Jaws is a brilliant film. Absolutely one of the all-time classics. And then all the sequels are fucking dreadful. Like really, really, really bad. and I like shark films, I guess, and, you know, even by my standards, the sequels are really, really bad. Jaws the Revenge, that's not a film, that's a punishment. So yeah, if lockdown's anything like films in respect of sequels, I'm not expecting great things from these next 4 weeks. But I do absolutely have a mindset that, you know what, we've all just got to do what the right thing is for us to get through that. And if that's eating too much chocolate, so be it. If that's sitting watching trashy TV, so be it. Let's be honest, if you're Jamie, I said to the kids, I said, you know, obviously lockdown's coming. For Beth, it means she can't do her football for a period of time, which I am actually unreasonably angry with the government about, because I read the data, I went to have a look at the data. I'm obviously unreasonably biased on this, clearly, because I've got a daughter who loves football. But outdoor sport is so low risk. It's such a low risk activity. And I just think we're in a country with a real obesity struggle, and staying fit and healthy is so important in tackling any illness, not just COVID, but any illness. But they have made the decision, of course, that all outdoor sports for adults and for children have to stop. And yeah, if I think I'm livid about it, that's nothing compared to Beth's reaction for not being able to play for a few weeks. So she's going to miss her football. But for Jamie, when I said to Jamie that another lockdown was coming. Actually, we wound the children up. This is terrible. We're probably terrible parents for doing this. So there's a little bit of a tradition now with the Boris breaking news announcements, or whatever the hell they're called, that we wind the children up with them. So we did a good wind up one. I think there was one in June which talked about things slowly starting to get back to normal. Well, we called Jamie downstairs and told him he was starting back at school on Monday. Kept that one going for about half an hour. That was very funny. But with this one, when it was announced, was it last weekend? Yeah, it must be last weekend the lockdown was announced, and the children were upstairs. So I called both children down, agreed with Mr. I know I need to stop talking, that we'd trick them. Called both children down. I said, right, kids, you know, you need to be brave. There's going to be another lockdown. And Jamie's first reaction was to go, yes, because he thought that another lockdown meant schools were closing. No, I said, no, because schools have the magical force field around them that stops all of the bad coronavirus from getting into them. Why would you possibly need schools to be stopped? Oh yeah, he said. Does it really exist, that magical force field? No, I don't think so. So he had to obviously come to terms with the fact that another lockdown for him did not mean that he was going to get to sit in his pants all day. And then I said to him, but there is some other news. The government have announced that because of all the school that you missed earlier in the year, you're now going to be going to school 6 days a week. Beth then, who I thought was quite bright, but I now have cause to doubt this, Beth turned around and went, yes! And I went, oh, I mean, she quite likes school. I said, really, you're that happy? Yeah, she thought that she already went to school 7 days a week. So maths is really going well with Beth. But yeah, so we kept that with Jamie for quite some time, that he was going to have to go 6 days a week. But for Jamie, as I say, aside from the fact that he's livid that he still has to go to school, lockdown has not really changed his life in any way, shape or form, because effectively he goes to school, then he comes at home and he sits in his pants. And I think, well, in fairness, if you're like Jamie and lockdown for you means you can hide away from other people and spend more time on your computer than is usually feasibly permitted, then fair play to you. But for lots of us, it's a bit shit. I like people. I like hugs. Oh, I miss hugging people so much. And I know how lucky I am. I've got people here that I can hug, but I really miss hugging. When all of this eventually ends, and those of you who are non-huggers will be going, don't you fucking dare. I will be that person going up to random strangers on the street and just embracing them, just for the joy of a good hug. I miss hugs. So yeah, if you're feeling a little bit shit, and I wrote a post on Friday night, which is like, there's no right or wrong way to feel right now. And I just think that there is a really unpleasant tendency that's come out with this pandemic, which is people are afraid, right? People are scared and they are taking that fear out on other people. And there's so much judgment, whether it's, I don't know how many trips to a supermarket somebody has a week, or whether it's somebody's looking after an elderly parent and do they really need looking after, and is it really allowed under lockdown, and blah, blah, blah. And I just think we just all need to be a little bit kind to each other right now. And that includes us. That includes all of us, because I don't know about anybody else. I think I wrote a post at the time. The first lockdown, I was absolutely exhausted. And I felt really guilty for feeling exhausted, because unlike a lot of people, I was able to work from home and sit in my house. And as I say, it's a nice house, it's got a garden. I was hugely privileged, but I felt exhausted because I think it's that constant thing of feeling that you need to be all things to all people. So I count myself incredibly lucky that obviously the schools are going back, and thank you so much, teachers. I have no words to thank you so much for everything that you do for our children. So obviously the schools are going back, which is great, and I think for a lot of families that will give some much needed structure to the day. But yeah, I just think if there's something you love and it's not going to harm somebody else, then in lockdown, don't you dare guilt trip yourself about it. Just go and do it. And I'm quite lucky, as I've said on here before, because the thing that I really, really, really love is I love to walk. I love to walk after I finally realised this year how much I fucking hate running. My running days are over. But I love to walk. And so with football cancelled, and therefore an awful amount of time on our hands at weekends, I somehow managed to persuade Jamie to come and walk. Well, I told him it was 7 miles because I just think set expectations, low, and then you won't get whinging. It was more like 9.5, but 7, 9.5, what's 2.5 miles between friends is not what he said to me at the end of the walk. But we set off and it was a beautiful day. It was in quite sharp contrast to last Saturday, when we'd gone out walking, and I think I said on the blog at the time, it fucking pissed it down. We were drenched. I was wringing out my underwear at the end of it. That's a nice mental image, isn't it? But no, this time the sun shone. It was absolutely glorious. And there's something wonderful. I think those of you who have teenage or pre-teenage children will know. When you can get them out and away from the distraction of the screens and the electronic devices, and you just get them out, and it's a good old-fashioned walk. And actually, Jamie's a great walking companion. Anyway, he is a great walking companion. I was quite surprised that he'd agreed to come for a walk with me with only minimal bribing. I mean, of course, bribing is necessary, right? He's a teenage boy, but with only minimal bribing required. I was quite surprised until we got about 3 miles in, and he confessed, God, I love Jamie so much. He confessed that the reason he'd agreed to come onto the walk was that he might just possibly have forgotten to tell me about the tiny factor of him getting a detention in his maths class on Friday, which he knows that there are some classes I'm reasonably relaxed about. I still think he should behave, but I'm really reasonably relaxed. But maths is important. Maths is my subject, and we all need maths, right? We all need maths in life. So it took him about 3 miles, but he eventually fessed up about his detention. But then it's great because you're out together and you're walking, and you can kind of sort of talk it through and rationalise and talk about why he didn't mention it previously and why he got it and whether he thought it was fair. It's such a good way of getting kids to talk to you. And I think if you can take them out one-on-one, and I know not everybody's able to do that, but I think if you can take them out one-on-one as well, it's even better. And I love the variety of the conversations that we have these days. And I've said for a long time on this blog, parenting, we find our time. We all find our time. It's funny because we did the same walk that I'd done. My mum had come down just before lockdown kicked in, and we'd done the same walk. And she and I were talking about parenting because my sister's children are much younger than my two, and my mum absolutely loves being around them, and indeed loved being around my two when they were that age. She's brilliant with young children, like preschool children. She is amazing. That's her time. She is outstanding, and she loves it. She can craft all day. She can play make-believe games all day or do pretend cooking and shit like that. Bores me fucking senseless, but she loves it. So for her, that's her time. And she would say by her own admission that teenage years, she's a little bit more sort of out of her comfort zone. But for me, that the preteen and the teenage years so far, and I'm notwithstanding the fact that clearly one or both of my kids could go completely off the rails and I'll be like, fuck this shit, this is horrendous. But right now, I just love it. I love the curiosity. I love the things that they want to ask you about. I love the fact that, touch wood, so far both my kids will come to me and they'll talk to me and they'll ask me about anything, and I think that's such a privilege as a parent. So we talked about fucking everything on our walk, me and Jamie. We had an extended conversation on STDs. I don't know as much about STDs as I thought I did. There was a lot of questions in there on STDs. How many STDs are there? I don't know. I was going to Google when I got back. I still haven't Googled. I clearly need to. So long chat about STDs and smegma. There's a great word, isn't there? Not used enough, smegma. According to Jamie, here we go, this is an interesting fact for you all today, particularly those of you who are closer to my age than Jamie's, and YouTube is still a little bit of a mystical art. Apparently there's a YouTuber who sang a song about smegma. That's nice. Like I say, undervalued substance, smegma, really not at all. It's a terrible, terrible word. But yeah, so we chatted about STDs, we chatted about smegma. Then we got on to kissing techniques. It suddenly like all floods back and you're like, oh my goodness, that's terrifying, isn't it? When you kiss another person for the first time. And I think a lot is like made of kissing as a teenager, I guess, because hopefully that's all you're doing at that stage. But yeah, we were chatting about kissing techniques, and sort of I remember practicing kissing on my arm. I'm not sure that helped my technique even slightly, but I remember practicing kissing on my arm. And so I kind of tried to give him vague advice on, sort of things that are good and not good, like, don't bite the other person. If you're drooling down their face, that's not ideal. I told him the cautionary tale of a boy I knew as a teenager, and will preserve his anonymity. We'll call him Washing Machine Boy, because that was what his kisses felt like. Bless him. He was a sweet, sweet guy. But his technique on the kissing front was not ideal. He kissed like a spin cycle, literally. His tongue would go in your mouth and he'd kind of rotate it round clockwise for, I don't know, 10 spins. And then for a little variety, he'd go back in the other direction. I feel bad even saying that, but hopefully somebody's taught him to be a good kisser. But yeah, in terms of things you don't want to do, I think if your kissing technique resembles a spin cycle, it's probably not ideal. But yeah, so we talked about anything and everything, and it was just lovely. And as I say, I love this stage of parenting, and nobody is more surprised than me that I do, because I'm very open on the blog how tough I found those early years, really until my kids went to school. And as we were walking along, Jamie and I, and there weren't many other similarly aged kids out with their parents, probably because they had no need to tell their parents about detentions that they got that they hadn't mentioned, and therefore they could stay in their pants in front of their computer screens. But we talked and we walked, and we came across lots of families with much younger children, so babies and pushchairs and toddlers in those weird toddler suits, like toddlers going skiing, only they're not going skiing. Those all-in-one things, which I don't understand, and this is why I probably just wasn't very good at those early years of parenting. Surely an all-in-one thing is more likely to make you topple over and then need the entire thing washing as opposed to just part of it. And am I overthinking this? Almost certainly. And they were standing around chatting inanely about feeding ducks and stuff. And for all I know, those parents and those kids were having an absolutely lovely time, because I know that everybody's experience of parenting is really different. But it did just remind me of what an absolute grind I found those early years. And it took me a really, really long time to admit that. And there's definitely still part of me now that feels a bit guilty, because I know I've got friends who would do anything to have children who haven't been able to have their own children, whether because they haven't found a partner, whether because they've suffered with infertility. And I think that probably exacerbates the issue of people not feeling able to talk openly about just how hard, just how tough parenting, all stages of it, can genuinely be, because we're brought up to see it as this huge gift, having children, and it is a huge gift, but it's also really fucking tough, and I just don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. And I think back to those early days. We definitely all find our time, but those early days, they were so not my time. I can remember, even as it's quite a visceral memory. I can remember even now coming back from holiday. Coming back from hospital with Jamie, and I was in my mid-20s, and I'd had nothing to do with babies ever. Babies didn't interest me, still don't interest me, to be honest. Like, someone brings their baby into the office or friend, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. I don't want to hold babies particularly. I have nothing against babies. it's not kind of like it was. If you bring in a puppy or a kitten, I am there. I think maybe that's where my maternal instincts kind of got slightly misguided, and I like, yeah, babies not so much. Puppies and kittens, oh dear God, look at the cuteness. So I had never really had any experience of babies before, and then suddenly I had a real life baby that had come out of my stomach and through my vagina. Ouchie, ouchie, and now was mine to look after, and oh dear God, if I thought childbirth was terrifying, that was fucking nothing compared to having another real life human being to look after by myself. And we'd stayed 2 nights in hospital, Jamie and I, and to be honest, I was amazed when they said you can go home, because it felt like if you adopt a cat or a dog, there's lots of forms that you have to fill in. They do home checks and they ask you questions about how you'll feed them and look after them. And with a baby, it's like, yeah, there you go, it's yours now, crack on. What? I can't even get the car seat into the car. How am I meant to keep an entire other human being alive? It's terrifying. But nevertheless, after 2 nights in hospital, they said to us that we could go home. And I have never, ever felt so desperate in my life because I just didn't know what to do. I just had no clue what to do. So Jamie, I think this is quite common with new babies, Jamie had got night and day mixed up, so he thought that a great time to sleep was in the day, but nighttime was party time. And he also did that thing that small children do, which is such a dick move on their part, honestly. They do that thing of going, I'm so tired, I need to go to sleep. I'm so tired, I need to go to sleep. I'm so tired, I can't fall asleep. What the fuck? How is that possible? I get tired, I go to sleep. I understand it's not their fault, it's alert behaviour, but seriously, dick move, toddlers and small babies, dick move. And I remember that first night at home, and at that time in our house we didn't have central heating. This is relevant because just the house was very, very cold. And I remember Mr. I know I need to stop talking, had to go back to work quite quickly, and so I took Jamie, and we just walked around the house in the dark, in the cold. My feet were really cold, I remember that. And I just didn't know what to do because he wouldn't go to sleep. And I'd read stuff with people saying, oh, their babies didn't go to sleep, but at least they went to sleep when they were like lying on them. No, I remember holding him, and I just remember him looking over my shoulder with these big dark eyes round the world, and me going, I've got not a fucking clue what to do. How do you get a baby that doesn't want to go to sleep? I was so tired. And I'll probably do a podcast at some point on sleep deprivation. Goodness, that sounds like fun, doesn't it? If you came here for laughs, you're in the right place. Now, I mean, there's loads of funny stuff about sleep deprivation, but I think if you're someone who has a baby who wakes up in the night but broadly sleeps quite well, I think that's one level of sleep deprivation. I think when you have a baby like Jamie, where probably for at least a year I was getting by on anywhere between about 2 and 4 hours of sleep a night. I mean, there's a reason they use it for torture, right? There is a reason that they use it for torture. And then, like an avenging angel, my mum turned up in her little red Vauxhall, and as I say, babies and toddlers, that's her time. And I have never been more grateful for my mum in my life. She just came in and she knew how to get Jamie to sleep because she had the magic skills, or more likely she'd had 2 children, she knew what to do, and she made him sleep, and she cleaned my house, and she cooked his meals. And it was like the proper grown-up had turned up, and I was like, yes, the proper grown-up's turned up and taken charge now. And then after a week, of course, she had to go home, and it all fell apart again. But I suppose the reason I say all of that is that I think I found those early years tough enough with a big support network around me, and I did NCT classes. We had an amazing NCT group that we all met up regularly to drink a glass of wine at lunchtime and go, what the fuck's happened to our lives? And I think one of the things that worries me the most is if you're someone feeling like I was feeling in that kind of situation, those early years, or whether you've already got a toddler and you've had a baby, and that support network is cut off to you. That must be so unimaginably tough. So if you are one of those people, I kind of wanted to say this in today's podcast because it's completely normal. It's not just you. I definitely spent a lot of my early years going, fuck, it's just me. It's definitely not just you. But also do come and talk, and even if you can't, meet up with people in face to face, Zoom, we're all a bit over Zoom, right? We're all a bit over looking at our own reflections while we talk to another person. I can't fucking wait for face-to-face meetings when I don't have to look at my own face. Maybe I'll end up taking in a mirror because I'll have become so institutionalised. I'll be like, but I can't adjust my hair in this meeting. How will this work? But I think Zoom is great and phone calls are great, and I know they're not the same as face-to-face, but also don't hesitate to get in touch, whether it's, message me, or if you're on online chat forums. Forums can be great, actually. They can be terrifying and scaring places, but probably in those early days, there was an online forum that I was a member of at the time. It was quite a small, closed forum, and I remember, I think Jamie was 10 days old, and I think I remember those 10 days, I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it anymore. And people had said to me, oh, it's the first 6 weeks, they're the worst. I thought, the first fucking 6 weeks, you're having a laugh. I can't do 6 more minutes of this. And I genuinely wasn't joking. I felt broken. And I just remember going on there and saying, oh my goodness, I'm struggling so much. I can't do this. I'm so tired. I just want to sleep. I just wanted my old life back. And that's terrible, isn't it? And then I felt awful that I was saying that I wanted my old life back. But I just felt absolutely broken. And within minutes, the number of people who responded on there to say, honestly, it's not just you. This is completely normal. You're sleep deprived. You've got a brand new baby. Your body's working out what's going on. It's so normal. And I will be forever grateful to the girls on that forum. And I know some of them follow the blog today. So if you are listening, you know who you are. I'm so grateful to you, because honestly, you were genuinely a lifesaver. So don't ever feel that you're alone and it's just you. There's loads of different sources of support there, and I can't imagine how tough it must be going through another lockdown period in that sort of that new baby kind of phase. But I promise you, help is out there, and I promise you, you are not the only one who feels that way. You will find your time. You will find your time, I promise you, and it might take a while, but we all get there in the end. And as I say, I think if you told me 13 years ago that one day I would love parenting, I'd have been like, I'd have laughed in your face. And yet, honestly, it's this is my time. This is the best thing. It is the best thing I've ever done. It really is. But it can take time to get there. It definitely did with me. And there's, there are the funny moments, right? Even in those tough early years, there are the funny moments. Jamie and I were reminiscing when we were out walking. One of my favourite moments. This is terrible parenting. So fucking funny. I woke up one morning and we had, in our old house, we had a big loft conversion. And so we had our bed up there, and Jamie also had a single bed up there because we were still quite small. And I woke up one morning, Mr. I know I need to stop talking, had gone to work. And I could hear Jamie shouting, "Mummy, mummy, mummy." He wasn't crying. He was just like, he sounded quite perplexed. He was like, "Mummy, mummy, mummy." So I sat up in bed and I couldn't see it. It was quite a big loft space. I couldn't see him. I was like, "Jamie." And I was like, "Mummy, mummy, mummy." So I walked around looking for the source of the mummy, mummy, mummy. I eventually located him. He had gone after some Lego that had got stuck underneath his bed, which was quite close to the ground. Yeah, he'd got his head stuck underneath the bed. Oh my goodness, that is my dishwasher beeping in the background at the point of the punchline as well. Seriously, come on. My household appliances are a bit fucking much. They really are. Thank you to the person who commented to say that they thought the reason that my washing machine was being such a dick was because they told me what was wrong with it. I forgot what was wrong with it. Either way, I clearly need a new washing machine and a new dishwasher. Proper podcasters never have these problems. They're so aggressive, kitchen appliances. So aggressive. Anyway, so yeah, Jamie had his head stuck under the bed. As I say, he wasn't hurt. He wasn't even distressed. He was just bemused. "Mummy, mummy, mummy." I absolutely had to take a photograph before I pulled him out from under the bed, a fact which I have since confessed to him, which probably makes me a terrible, terrible parent, but it was very, very fucking funny. That definitely brought a smile. And we on this walk, we walked through some woods where we used to go when he was very little. I said to him, "Do you remember coming here?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Wasn't that with the seaweed?" And I said, "Yeah." So Jamie used to have a real thing for Lord of the Rings. He loved Lord of the Rings. So we'd read him bits of the books, he'd listened to the radio play, and he'd seen bits of the film. And in the film, obviously, Andy Serkis, isn't it, who plays Gollum, who's very realistic. He's very, very, very good. And Jamie quite liked slightly creepy things, so he quite enjoyed the Gollum character. But he used to go to these woods. I used to take him to play. And he used to go and pick up big swathes of seaweed and carry them into the woods and stomp off, telling me that these were for Gollum. Well, Jamie confessed to me today that what he was actually doing is he was making sacrifices to Gollum because he was actually really quite scared of him. So he thought if he took the seaweed sacrifices into the woods, it would all be okay. So yeah, good. It's good to know that I've clearly traumatised my child and he still remembers in later life. But it was a beautiful, glorious morning, and then we returned home. You might have seen last night's blog post. So I hate cheese, and I know that you are all judging me for saying that, but I fucking hate cheese. I don't mind a bit of mozzarella melted on a pizza, but outside of that, get out of my kitchen, cheese. I have no time for your fermented, smelly milk ways. Jamie loves it. Jamie loves cheese, and the stinkier the cheese, the better. He loves a bit of Stilton. And during sort of like midway between the first lockdown and this lockdown, we went to a pub and he happened to have a baked camembert, and honestly it was like the greatest meal of his life. He's waxed lyrical about it ever since. We haven't gone back because we're back in lockdown, and he mentioned this to my mum when she was down last weekend with kind of this look of longing in his eyes. Anyway, yesterday afternoon I got a text from my mum saying, "Has Jamie got his parcel?" And I was like, "What parcel?" We have a little post box safe type thing outside our front door. I went out to look, opened the lid of the post box. It smelt fucking dreadful. It smelt like something had died in there. So I called Jamie down. I said, "You got a parcel?" He went, "Oh God, what is it?" Well, he opened it up, and God love my mum, she'd found him a camembert. She'd put it in the post. She'd wrapped it up in brown paper. And I'm so sorry if you're my postman listening to this and you had to handle that stinking beast of a cheese. So he was delighted. So we got back home today and I cooked him up his stinking camembert for him to have with fresh crusty bread, and you've never seen anybody look so happy. You really haven't. He was delighted. Meanwhile, obviously Beth wasn't with us because Beth has a very cynical approach to walking. I think it was Beth when she was quite small. I took the kids out on a walk and Beth found a tree. We were, I don't know, a couple of miles in. Beth found a tree and flung her arms around it and refused to walk any further because, as she announced to me, "You have broken both my legs." For avoidance of doubt, I had not broken both, or indeed either of Beth's legs, but Beth is nothing like a flair for the dramatic. Literally no clue where she gets that from. So she had remained at home while we were out walking and then came back to discover that she had started preparations in earnest for Christmas, despite the fact it is the 7th of November. Yep, she is nothing but not enthusiastic. So she's spent the afternoon making a Christmas wreath, while telling me all about the many and varied ways she's going to be serving up spaghetti hoops with her Christmas dinner. I think I mentioned before that we're going to have Christmas at home this year, just the four of us for the first time ever. And actually, I think we're all quite excited about it. And I know we're very lucky to be in a position where that's a good thing, not a, kind of a disappointing thing. But yeah, the kids are very up for it. But at the minute, it feels like I'm going to feel like I'm running a restaurant for about 72 covers based on the amount of meals Beth is expecting over the course of the day. And yeah, and a side of spaghetti hoops with Christmas dinner. That'll be a first. That will be a first. We're making Christmas puddings tomorrow, Beth and I, so that has high potential for chaos. I'll report back next week. Beth has an eclectic approach to baking, so yeah, we'll see how that one goes. She's had oh my God, the dishwasher again. Seriously, I would get if it does its beeping once, but it's really quite aggressive. It's like, okay, you finished. And it's like, I've still finished. I'm still beeping. I realise now that if when I put this through the editing software, it kind of blends out the beeps in the background, I'm going to sound like a mad woman raving about beeps that you can't actually hear. But plus ça change, what else is new? But yes, we've been very invested as a family this week in the US election. I will not make this blog post, it's not a blog post, I will not make this podcast political, but it probably is no surprise to know where our leanings and Beth's leanings in particular go for. So my US listeners, I so hope and fingers crossed, it looks like the great American public is hopefully going to have, in my opinion, certainly seen sense. But yeah, Beth has a very strong view against one of the candidates. She is not a fan at all of one of the candidates. So we went to get a family flu jab earlier this week, and I had to physically sit on her to stop her. We were looking at the election results on my phone while we waited, to physically sit on her to stop her screaming her views on one particular candidate across the pharmacy. So yeah, she is nothing but impassioned. But yeah, I think it's one day at a time right now. It's one day at a time, and I can't emphasise it enough. I can't say it enough. I will keep saying on every single podcast, be kind to you, genuinely be kind to you. I think there's a lot to take in right now, and the first lockdown was probably a little bit of a novelty and like, oh, this is exciting. Well, maybe I'm exaggerating. I am an eternal optimist, as you know. Maybe that's a slight exaggeration. But it was new and it was novel, whereas this time it's like the same shit, different day. Here we go again. So be kind to you. Do whatever you need to do to get you through. It will pass. This will pass. Even those dark days in the early days of certainly having Jamie, when I just didn't know what the fuck had happened to my life, they passed. And the lovely sunny days walking through the woods, talking about Gollum and seaweed and discussing the relative merits of STDs, those days will come again. They will come again. Look after yourselves, my lovelies. Stay safe. I will see you all next week. Take care. Lots of love.